Hey guys, here we go. This is going to be the second day that we are talking about our economy unit, and we will have our economy unit notes finished after today. So, just a little brief review. Last class, we talked about gross domestic product, GDP, total value of goods and services produced within a given year. A little example of how we calculate GDP on a very small scale down there at the bottom. But again, this is the major thing to know about this is that this is an indicator of how our economy is doing. It's actually an indicator of whether it's how we decide if we're in a recession or not, like if our economy is growing or shrinking. So, again, we looked at that unemployment rate, number of people who are willing and able to work but cannot find work during a given period of time. This is actually really interesting, especially right now, going on with our society right now, because there are a lot of people who are able to work. I was just reading this stat what was it? I read it to Sixth Hour yesterday. Um, there's a lot of people who are able to work, but the government has extended this additional unemployment benefit where people are actually making more money claiming unemployment and not working, that they don't want to go back to work. So they're not willing to work, but they're still being calculated in the unemployment rate. So we're still paying government dollars to pay these people. And President Biden has extended this through September, I believe was what I read today. So I believe that there was good intention with this, but right now there are so many different places that are trying to hire workers, and they actually cannot fill all of the demand for these jobs. And like there's a shortage of employees, but there's really not. There are just so many people claiming unemployment. So I think the statistic was like 42% of people who are claiming unemployment were making more money on unemployment than they were at their actual jobs before COVID. So completely crazy. It's weird. So there's all these people that or companies that are trying to hire people, and they can't find workers, so they're starting to give incentives. They're starting to pay more. Amazon raised their average pay from $15 to $17. Walmart's now up to their average pay, not their minimum pay, but their average pay of $15 per hour. Somebody else was given like $1,000 sign up bonus. I want to say that was like UPS, or someone was given $1,000 sign up bonus, or maybe that was Amazon trying to get people to come out. Oh no, it was Chipotle. I think it was Chipotle was given $1,000 signing bonus. If you stay for a certain amount of time, you get $1,000, and like they're just doing anything they can to try to find these employees. But nothing's happening with the unemployment rate. The unemployment rate is staying the same, if not raising, because of this other government program. Anyway, I won't spend any more time on it, but remind me, I'll read you some statistics about it on Thursday. It's kind of crazy. I've never really seen this before. I'm sure maybe it's happened before, but I just really haven't seen it. Again, unemployment rate, indication of whether our economy is picking up or slowing down, growing or shrinking. All right, next slide. Let's go. We talked about inflation, cost of goods and services rising over time. We talked about lumber. We talked about housing. There's a lot of different things. Hey, if Chipotle, Amazon, Walmart all have to start paying employees more, guess what's going to happen to the cost of goods and services? It's going to rise. And we're going to see probably a good amount of inflation. We saw like 4.2% inflation last year, which is a lot. Went over some examples, causes for deflation, inflation, deflation is pricing going down. We probably won't see that for a little bit. Deficit, that's basically what the United States government, they spend more money than they make. And yeah, that's just what it is. I wish it wasn't that way. I think we're going to end up having to pay for that in some way on down the line, but unfortunately people really are not concerned about it right now. Surplus, ran it back in 1999 was the last time the government had a budget surplus. That's when we made more money or generated more revenue than we spent in our expenses. All right, so here we go. We're starting this out with the business cycle. So economies go through ups and downs. We've been in a really great place for the last 6-7 years without COVID. COVID was a little blip on the screen. I shouldn't say little, but it was a blip on the screen compared to what a lot of recessions are. But technically, we did fall into a recession in 2020 during the COVID. I guess that was probably like the April, May area. April, May, June, July, August even. So it's when GDP declines for 2 or more consecutive quarters. We'll get into that. But the 4 stages of the business cycle: prosperity, that's really, really good times; recession, really, really bad times. We saw the last recession that we were technically in was 2000. It started at the end of 2008, beginning of 2009. Stock market dipped by 50%. Talk about a good opportunity to buy. Real estate went ice cold. Funding for real estate went ice cold. Loaning money was extremely difficult. Technically, 2020 was a very short recession because GDP did decline for 2 consecutive quarters. And then we hit recovery. So after those 2 quarters, once we hit quarter 3, GDP started to grow again. We were actually out of the recession, the very small recession. We did see recovery in 2011, 2012. Some say even into like 2010, but I believe that recovery we were not quite there in 2010. And we've only seen one depression, the last stage of the business cycle. Thank the good Lord. 1929, October 29th, 1929 marked the date of the Great Depression. And luckily, we've only seen one. I think there's a lot of government regulations and government support and stimulus and stuff like that they are going to avoid. The government will most likely step in before it gets to recession phases, kind of like they did with the bailouts in 2009 with the banking industry and those big banks. That was going to be catastrophic to lots and lots and lots of people, and the government bailed them out to basically make sure we didn't fall into a depression for many, many years. All right, so prosperity. What's happening in prosperity? Well, unemployment's really, really low. People are able to find work. New businesses are forming. New businesses are starting, so entrepreneurship is high. Productions of goods and services is very high, so that's going to be high GDP. This is the peak of economic activity. Our stock market is going up. Standard of living is going up. I say everyone's happy. I'm sure not everybody's happy, but a lot of people are happy. So 2014 through early 2020, and then you would say it would pick up again here in 2021 for sure. Absolutely. Recession. This is the definition of recession. GDP declines for 2 or more consecutive quarters. So we are producing less goods and services for 2 consecutive quarters. So we hit it in 2000 with the dot-com crash, 2009 with the housing crisis, and 2020 with COVID. Those would be the last 3. I'd really have to go back and do a little bit more research. They happen, gosh, you see recessions about every 7 to 13 years. So if the last one was in 2009, you got to think one's probably coming up, unless you counted this one in 2020. But yeah, recessions can be bad times for a lot of struggling businesses and employees as well. Depression, a very deep recession. It impacts the entire economy. And you saw how large of an economy we have when we did that map of the United States and saw it compared to other countries. So if we have a recession or depression here in the United States, that impacts the entire world. Right? China also has a really large GDP, and so that impacts the entire world. Maybe not us as much, but to a certain degree it would. And if we struggled with our economy, they would most likely fall along with us some as well. So very high unemployment, low production. People just don't have money in circulation. People are losing jobs. Unemployment rates are really high. Stock market's really, really low. October 29th, 1929, known as Black Tuesday, not the popular shopping holiday known as Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, marked the beginning of the Great Depression. Many banks failed. The FDIC didn't exist. Mr. Concilio, what is FDIC? Glad you asked. Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. Basically, it's insurance. When you put money into the bank, back in 1929, it didn't matter if that bank failed, if that bank got robbed, if that bank caught on fire and all your money inside, you were out. Like, nobody had to give you back any money. They didn't have any money to give you. So if they loaned all the money out and nobody paid them back because they made a bunch of bad loans, sorry, the money that you gave them to hold, technically they're responsible for it, but they don't have any money to pay you back. So the FDIC is basically insurance on your money up to $250,000. So if the banks do something shady, catch on fire, get robbed, whatever it is, your money is backed by the federal government. So it's an insurance policy, and the banks pay for this FDIC, and then they offer it to their customers as a service. So this was created by the Banking Act of 1933, and it's funded by bank premiums for coverage. And again, it came about because of the 1929 Great Depression. Because if I had $10,000 in the bank in 1929, which means I was filthy rich, and I lost my job and I went to the bank was like, sorry, we don't have any money because all the money that we were holding for you, we loan out and earn interest on, and they didn't pay it back and their businesses have gone under. And I'm like, give me my money. And they said, we don't have any, sorry. Tough luck. That sucks. Yeah, really, really bad. Why was the FDIC needed in 34? Stock market declined by 75%. So selling those investments, basically, yeah, good luck. A, nobody was buying them. When you sell something on the stock market, there has to be a buyer on the other side. And yeah, you might as well use it to light a fire and stay warm at that point because it's down 75%. Unemployment rate was at 25%. People are kind of freaking out when unemployment rate was at like 10% during the middle of our COVID, and they thought the world was ending. Well, 25%, that's more than double that, 2.5 times that. Banks were failing. There's no money to withdraw from the bank. People lost trust in the bank. And talk about inflation. Here's a good example of inflation. In 1934, the FDIC insured $2,500. Now, in 2021, I believe it's $250,000 if they haven't raised it again. Yeah. Then recovery. This is like what I call like the Band-Aid of the business cycle. So this is the economy repairing itself. GDP starts to increase, starts to grow. Unemployment decreases. People are able to find jobs. There is new businesses opening. Entrepreneurship is starting to increase, and there's a rise in business activity after the recession, following the recession. Recovery generally leads back to prosperity, but not necessarily. It doesn't necessarily have to. You could be in recovery for a very short amount of time, like we were in 2020, or it could be a longer period of time, like we were in 2010, 2011, something like that. All right, so here's your assignment. I would like you to take a piece of paper, and I would like you to illustrate to yourself 4 sections of the business cycle. I would like you to also associate a year with each section. You can use the internet, or you can use this PowerPoint as well. And I would like you to explain your drawing on page 2 or on the back of your drawing. I would probably just use the back. So here's the way that I did it. I don't want you to just write the roller coaster or draw the roller coaster on there. I want you to come up with something proprietary to you, something that you're going to make a connection with. So for me, I love golf. So I'm going to make a connection to the 4 different points in the business cycle based on a golf hole. So the very first thing I did was draw a golf hole, and then I would have basically a ball on the green, and the ball on the green, there'd be an arrow that points to that ball saying, this is prosperity, this is as good as it gets, I have a birdie putt, this was a great shot, I'm staying out of trouble, everything's going well, blah, 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 blah. I associate this, hitting the ball 2 feet from the pin as prosperity. Okay. I might have, depression might be the ball landing over in a body of water where I'm going to have to take a penalty, and this is the worst it's going to get, or out of bounds, or whatever it is. A recession might be me hitting the ball into the rough or the sand trap. So it's not the end of the world, but I have a really tough road ahead of me. And then recovery might be me hitting my second shot right next to the pin or something like that. I was in trouble and I got out of trouble. Maybe I'm behind a tree and I hit a big hook or slice around a tree to hit the ball onto the green as I recover and get back into position on the golf course. So that's my example. I don't know that I actually have I don't think I have a picture of that, or I would show that to you. Usually I draw it on the board, but that's my example. So don't draw a golf hole. Maybe this is associated with another sport that you really like. I've seen a lot of those throughout time. Maybe it's something really cool that I've never ever even seen before. Again, it's something that makes sense in your head. So take a little bit of time, draw it, make the connections, label each section, put a year with each section when we're actually in this point of the economy, and then write up a paragraph explaining the different, or actually you could just do it with 4 bullet points pretty much, explaining just in case either your artistic abilities are less than average, or I might not understand the correlation, so you might just have to explain that to me. Okay. All right. Good luck. Have fun. Hand these into the sub when you are done, and they'll put it in my mailbox, and we'll be good to go. We are going to probably play Sigopoly on Thursday, so you better bring your A game, and then remind me. I'll also talk to you guys about the final on Thursday as well. Okay? Have fun. Let me know if you have any questions, and yeah. See you guys. Oh, double check Power School. Make sure you have everything turned in. I think there was a person or two that didn't turn something in, either the mini business plan or the entrepreneurship notes. So make sure those get turned in as we wrap up this semester, okay? All right. See you guys.